Representative Jim Jordan now reporting that FBI whistleblowers who were telling all of us about malfeasance within the agency has been suspended because of that reporting. FBI doesn't want anybody talking about their problems there, and they are booting out any people who might reveal it. Here was Representative Jim Jordan on with Tucker Carlson. Tucker asked him about this whistleblower that we've been following for some time here. Remember that Chuck Grassley and others said that people from within the agency were hinting that the administration was focusing hard on homegrown domestic violent extremism and DVEs and HVEs and racial motivated VEs and all sorts of things. And the FBI agents have now contacted people from Congress and told them that this feels like it's being forced, like we are divesting our energies from other topics to focus on political prosecutions of these extremists that don't really exist. Representative Jim Jordan on with Tucker explaining what he's heard as a member of Congress.
He's a brave guy for coming forward. And I think the way I view it in my mind is, Tucker, they're juicing the numbers and they're cooking the books. And they are so focused on this, they're willing to pull agents from child trafficking cases to foster this narrative that you talked about, that Joe Biden in front of Independence Hall with the red background, clenched fist, talking about half the country being extremists. So remember, we've had
Joe Biden said it. The FBI has to go make it true. He's going to make his policy position clear to America. It wasn't just a ranting old man. That was a policy prescription. America is facing a threat. We have to go find those threats and exterminate them. That's your new directive, FBI. Go do it. And the whistleblowers are communicating that that order has been disseminated.
Previous whistleblowers who came to us and said that they were being pressured to label cases as domestic violent extremism. This whistleblower came forward and talked to us about how they're cooking the books, making the numbers seem that there are cases all over the country, when in fact they're all related to January 6th. And now what's happened today, we learned that this newest whistleblower has been suspended from his job. So there's retaliation going against this guy for coming forward and telling us what's going on.
How dare you leak about what we're doing here at the FBI? Completely inappropriate, and therefore there will be consequences for it. Here's Jim Jordan.
That's why this election in 50 days, Tucker, is so darn important. The way you send the messages, put Republicans in charge, and then what we have to do is get tough. We got to be committed to getting the truth to the American people. We got to be committed to any and every remedy we can come up. Nothing should be off the table when it comes to reining in a political Justice Department, which everyone knows is now the case. I mean, think about the last 6 weeks. Joe Biden raided the home of a former president, took the phone of a sitting member of Congress. The Inspector General at the Justice Department assisted in imaging the phone. He's supposed to be the independent oversight of the Justice Department. And oh, by the way, he also signed legislation which is going to unleash 87,000 IRS agents to come harass we, the taxpayer. That happened in 6 weeks, for goodness sake. So yeah, this election is critical when it comes to America's freedoms, liberties, and the Bill of Rights.
So you have a decision. You can vote one way or the other. Jim Jordan, though, saying that whistleblowers have now come to his attention and they are communicating about the horrendous things taking place within the FBI. Here is Jim Jordan's letter to the FBI Director Wray demanding answers about these whistleblowers. You can see drafted September 19, 2022, coming out of the House of Representatives, out of the Congress of the United States. Going over to FBI Director Christopher Wray at the FBI. It says, "Dear Director Wray, we continue to hear from brave whistleblowers about disturbing conduct at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, including the politicization of the Washington field office. On July 27, 2022, we wrote to you about protected whistleblower disclosures that FBI officials, including an assistant special agent in charge from WFO, were pressuring agents to reclassify cases as domestic violent extremism. That's the DVEs that we've been talking about. And doing so, even if the cases do not meet the criteria for classification." Footnote 1 is a letter from Jim Jordan over to Christopher Wray at the FBI. Since then, new whistleblowers have come forward with concerning information about how the FBI is deliberately manipulating the way the case files related to the January 6th investigations are maintained in order to create a false and misleading narrative that domestic violent extremism is increasing around the country, right? Faking this increase of activity. Jim Jordan calling him out. New whistleblower disclosures indicate that the Washington field office's handling of DVE investigations relating to J6, quote, diverge from established practice in a way that overstates the national DVE threat. One whistleblower has described how cases are ordinarily characterized and labeled by the field office, with leads, quote, cut to other field offices for specific assistance in geographic location. Whistleblower alleged that the FBI has not followed regular procedure with respect to the J6 cases, which should all be officially led by WFO and categorized as WFO cases. Explaining, instead, task force members in D.C. identify, quote, potential subjects and possible locations where these individuals reside. The task force then disseminates information packets with instructions to open full investigations to local field offices around the country. And as such, if a subject lives in Dallas, the Dallas field office is expected to open the case. Although the local field offices, therefore, appear to be running the cases on paper, the WFO is directing the field office special agents to just, quote, open the case in their geographic agent. And the WFO is performing and approving all of the investigative work and the paperwork for the case file. The whistleblower described, quote, that there are active criminal investigations of J6 subjects where I'm listed as the case agent, but I have not done any investigative work. Right? I haven't actually done anything on it. And the whistleblower supervisor has not approved any paperwork within those investigative files. This scheme allows you to continue to support on paper your assertion that the FBI is a field-based law enforcement organization, and the vast majority of our investigations should continue to be worked out by our field offices while actually running the investigation from Washington. Okay, see how it all comes together? Saying they have this little scheme out there where they're saying, why don't you open investigations in your local field office? But the way they have the sort of hierarchical structure is that really Washington is governing and running the whole thing. The whistleblower explained how Washington's deviation from established practice misrepresents the DVE threat nationwide. Whistleblower says, the manipulative case file practice creates false and misleading crime statistics. Instead of hundreds of investigations stemming from a single black swan incident at the Capitol, FBI and DOJ officials point to significant increases in DVE and terrorism around the United States. Yeah, because they've got so many field offices opening up so many new claims. In other words, the FBI's case categorization creates the illusion that threats from DVE are present in jurisdictions across the nation, when in reality, they all stem from the same related investigation concerning the actions at the Capitol on January 6th, right? Saying that all of these DVEs, these domestic violent extremists, thank you, K-Bean. Shout out to K-Bean. And have a good night, K-Bean. I think you're leaving. Saying that there is DVEs, domestic violent extremists, all across America, when in reality, that's not, I mean, they were just the J6 defendants who were all there at one incident. These are not new situations. Such an artificial case categorization scheme allows FBI leadership to misleadingly point to, quote, significant increases around the country. These allegations are consistent with disclosures we've received from other whistleblowers that high-ranking FBI officials, including senior officials, are pressing frontline agents to categorize cases as DVE matters to fit political narratives. In addition, Jim Jordan says, the whistleblower disclosed that the FBI is sacrificing its other important federal law enforcement duties to pursue J6 investigations. Whistleblower said, child abuse investigations were no longer an FBI priority and should be referred to local law enforcement agencies. We're just not even that interested in those. Send those to the local cops. Such a posture is not only a dereliction of the FBI's mission to investigate these laws, but it's a grave disservice to the victims of that abuse, and saying that these other crimes are not advancing the FBI's political agenda. Jordan says that the overwhelming majority of frontline FBI special agents are dedicated to America but we've consistently heard from whistleblowers that there is a rotted culture within the FBI leadership. Contrary to your belief, they say the FBI is not immune to oversight or accountability. And to inform our ongoing investigation, we'd like to know the following, they say. Jim Jordan wants to know all communications and referring communications that were opened on investigations from January 6th should go back over to him. He says, I also want all documents and communications about e-Guardians, a preliminary investigation case file. I also want to know about open investigations, potential subjects, and he wants some more details, case identifiers. He wants a spreadsheet. Send me a spreadsheet with a complete accounting of all the DVE cases that you open, including the case identifier, the responsible field office, the date open, the disposition of the matter, the number of arrest and search warrants sworn out by agents from the Washington field office, the number of all FBI agents involved in the J6 investigations. Give me this information no later than October 3rd. And we remind you, says Jim Jordan, that whistleblower disclosures to Congress are protected by law, and we do not tolerate any retaliation against whistleblowers for their disclosure. Well, it sounds like they suspended the guy, so I'm not sure if that counts or not. But that's Jim Jordan, who is sending a letter over to the FBI demanding to know more. And Jim Jordan also wants more. Jim Jordan also wants to see that affidavit from the Trump raid at Mar-a-Lago. Many of us have been wanting to see this for some time because the only thing that we've gotten thus far is a highly redacted document that doesn't really describe what the FBI agents observed as evidence that justified the raid of Trump's residence. Here is Representative Jim Jordan explaining that Congress, with their oversight powers, should probably get their hands on that unredacted affidavit.
You mentioned in your opening statement we could be spending our time on improving our nation's security. Yes, we could, and we have tried to do that for now almost 2 years. We have a border that is no longer a border. We'd love to talk about it. We'd love to talk about the fact that we went from safe streets to record crime in every major urban area and try to figure out how we can help those situations. But you guys won't do it. I think I speak for every Republican member on the Judiciary Committee, probably every Republican member in Congress. We would love to focus on those issues, but you won't do it. You talked about the FBI, and we shouldn't be disparaging the FBI. I agree. The vast majority of the Americans, I think your quote was Americans doing their job at the FBI. I agree with that. They're good people. In fact, we know of 14 of them who've come to our office as whistleblowers and talked about the political nature that overwhelms the Washington field office and the FBI. That's our concern. The FBI lied to the FISA court. The FBI altered evidence to the FISA court. That's not Republicans on the Judiciary Committee saying that. That's Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General. And they did so they could spy on President Trump's campaign. They even had a woman pose as someone else, use the name Azra Turk to bump into one of the people who worked on the Trump campaign. You know what they call that? Spying. They did it.
FBI behind it all.
The Comey memos, he leaked them to get a special. Okay, we can go. I don't want to go through all the history, but it's worth. I think it is worth just pointing to that. That's what happened at the FBI, and now we have this, the issue in front of us. Why this resolution of inquiry is so necessary. Last month, the FBI took the unprecedented step of raiding the home of a former president of the United States.
Insane.
Never happened in American history. And I would point out, not just the former president, but the likely presidential candidate for the Republican Party to run against the very Justice Department the Biden administration had go raid his home.
Little
raid
problem
on the president's
there.
residence represents a shocking escalation of Biden administration's weaponization of law enforcement resources against its political opponents. The American people deserve transparency and accountability, and that's why this ROI is necessary, not some heavily redacted affidavit. We want to know the truth.
The full affidavit, everything that's in there. Congress has oversight. Congress has the ability to say to the FBI, yeah, your budget is going into the toilet. Sorry. They have the right to investigate what their co-equal branches of government are doing, and the FBI has not been very forthcoming about this. In fact, they've been so closed on this that they don't even want a special master appointed to review the documents as a neutral arbiter. And it's a federal judge from the Eastern District of New York. It's not like it's some Trumper that they have a problem with. The government even approved of the special master. So we all want more information, including Congress. And if the Republicans win, if they take over, they may have the power and the wherewithal to demand answers or to defund the FBI or to do something consequential. But we, of course, will have to wait until the elections take place before we see any final outcomes on any of that. But we, of course, will continue to follow it, and I appreciate you subscribing and joining us as we do.